each episode of Bluey hides connections between them, and probably nobody noticed this. Or are you going to tell me that you noticed all the changes that the healer's house had throughout the episodes? Don't worry, because here we bring you all the details that your eye couldn't catch throughout Bluey. Let's get started. There are details that simply go unnoticed in Bluey, but let me tell you that everything that appears is there for a reason. And I am 100% sure that never noticed what happened with the gift that Bingo won in the package game episode? To refresh your memory a bit, we know that in this episode, Bingo was very sad because he didn't win anything in the package game. But almost at the end of the episode, right at Bluey's party, poor Bingo finally won something. And when she opened her big gift, we saw that it was a bird-shaped kite. And you might think that the story of this kite ended there, right? But that just shows you're not true fans of Bluey. Because we see the kite again right at the start of the Dirt episode. And well, now we know that Bingo is not very good raising their kites because the bird ended up stuck on top of this big tree. You never noticed this, did you? Let's see if from now on you open that bird's eye more. Friends, I know many of you have tried to find some hidden detail or Easter egg in all the drawings that are stuck Bluey and Bingo on your refrigerator, right? But I bet you anything that almost all of you have failed. But if you manage to pay attention and connect all the details, you will realize that all these drawings have connections with previous episodes of Bluey, and where we can clearly observe them is at the end of the episode. Perfect! Come on, you don't need much imagination to know that this drawing in this corner is about the Older Friends episode. Well, we see Mia, Bluey's friend. We also find this cart from the cart ride episode. We see unicorns, the duck cake that Bandit gave to Bingo, the drawing of the magic xylophone, a drawing of Lila, Bingo's best friend. We can also see a big reference to the bedtime episode in this drawing as we see Saturn and Floppy. In fact, we can see a major spoiler of what would have occurred between Rat and Frisky. In the poster episode, well, the girls drew these two lovebirds holding hands with hearts around them. Of course, it's the Double Nanny episode. And do you remember that I told you that every detail in Bluey has a reason? Well, here I bring you the next proof. And surely it never crossed your mind. If we remember a bit what happened in the Stump Festival episode, we will know that throughout the episode, Bandit, Pat, and Stripe had fun trying to pull out a huge log. Until in the end, they finally managed to pull it out of the ground and there was a huge hole in the ground. But do you know what happened to that hole? This is revealed to us in the Workers episode. Here we see how these two workers that Chili hired to build a pond arrive. And do you remember that big hole from the Stump Festival episode? Well, that hole was what these two workers used to create the fish pond that Chili asked them to. And if you're wondering what happened to this pond, they probably just left it for a while because we never saw it again in any other episode. Let's focus on Chippy, one of the workers at Chili's house. Hey Chippy, get to work. That's why you're here, right? Something quite curious about this character is that he is the first one we see with tattoos. Yes, friends, he has two tattoos, one of a tiger and another of some cherries on his left arm. And do you remember, most of the Workers episode, Chippy spent time arguing with his girlfriend. Do you remember her name? Cherry? Won't you let me explain? Will she be Cherry? But where could Cherry be? Hello, Cherry. Her name is Cherry. So the cherry tattoo that Chippy has on his left arm is undoubtedly a pretty cute reference to his girlfriend. How many of you had noticed this great detail? I'm sure this detail will leave you with your mouth open. And it's in the slumber party episode when poor Muffin arrives almost faint because she hasn't slept well. We have Blue and Bingo who want to play, even though Muffin is a walking zombie. But the detail is found when Muffin's brain wires get disconnected. And she runs off like crazy. And this is when we see Chili spring into action like a good cop. And maybe some wondered, where did she get this costume from? Chili? Well, no. It's not what you're thinking. The truth is that this is not a costume at all. Friends, it's actually Chili's work uniform. In case you didn't know, she works in the airport security department, so she's a full-fledged security guard. Sexy! We all know that Stripe and Trixie are not the best parents on the show. But there are several details that suggest their relationship seemed to have many disagreements and several discussions. And since the Facey Talk episode, we could understand that Stripe's behavior bothers Trixie a lot. What's going on? I'm sorting it out. Doesn't look like you're sorting it out? Hey guys. And they yell at each other without any consideration in front of their daughters. But is it really Trixie who loses control and ends up yelling at Stripe? Well. Now we can understand much better where Muffin's violent behaviors come from. But let me tell you, it's not just Muffin who's suffering the consequences of her parents' arguments. But also poor Socks is dealing with these traumas. And the real detail is found in the episode The Poster in the last part of the episode when everyone is already at the party. We can see that Stripe starts to get in a bad mood because he's had too much Don Julio, and we notice that Trixie starts to get uncomfortable with his attitudes. Moments later, in a background scene, we can see Stripe and Trixie arguing. But it seems they were already angry before, as at the beginning of the episode, we could also see them arguing. But the most interesting thing is that next to the cake is little Socks, who is playing with the wedding cake toppers of Rat and Frisky. But if you pay attention, it's as if she's simulating an argument between her parents. Of course. Could it be that all these fights are directly affecting Socks and Muffin? Leave in the comments what you think about this situation. This last detail may have gone unnoticed by many viewers in the episode. Surprise. And it sure was a big surprise, as it was not only to show us that Bluey would have a son. At the beginning of the episode, we could see the healer's house. As in previous episodes, only this time it didn't have one, but several different things. To start, we see how the facade of their house is completely different. You can notice several buildings and skyscrapers that we hadn't seen before. Even the cars are completely different. They have that more futuristic and quite developed touch. This makes it clear to us that time in Bluey's world did not pass in vain, and they had several technological developments. This development was so much that we can see drones flying around the house. And something quite curious is that Bluey's family now added a blue trash can. This makes us wonder what kind of waste will be thrown there. But anyway, something quite amazing is that even the detail of the long dogs changed according to the time of the episode. It's no longer just a plush toy, as seen in past episodes. Now we find this long dog in the form of a robot. Wow, the whole world of Bluey really did make a big leap into technology. Maybe now the one who does the chores and the little jobs is the Tesla robot from Chile. How many of you had noticed all these futuristic details? But that's how we conclude this video. Friends, tell us in the comments if you noticed other details as interesting as these.